Hello, AI initiates, and welcome to our new video where we're going to talk about the exciting news from ChatGPT in their Dev Day. We've got my brother Jacob here again with us, and we're going to discuss some of the findings and things that they announced and how it's going to impact this area in our world, in our lives, and in the professional sphere and in our personal world. So, Jacob, what are your first thoughts about that event?
Yeah, so Dev Day was pretty cool. I think that, I mean, we've been talking about this. We started this channel because the technology is amazing, but it just keeps getting more and
Right.
more amazing. And so for me, some of the things that I was most excited about, what I see as the limitations of ChatGPT and its form, is that it forgets after a minute in the conversation.
Yeah.
And it can only take so much information in before it gives information out. And so they mentioned that those things are going to be expanded, that it can now consume more information within a given conversation, and that memory is going to be increased. And I think that that's going to be a requirement for AGI, for the whole artificial general intelligence, is that longer memory and that ability to compartmentalize those memories. So I think as that memory expands, it
Yeah.
creates other new problems. But for me, that was probably the most exciting thing. I think there are lots of bells and whistles, the GPTs themselves, and we'll talk about that.
Right.
But for me, the most exciting thing was just it's going to remember more, which means that the chats themselves can be more dynamic. That
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest takeaway.
For me, one of the things is the knowledge base, the real world knowledge base that they brought it up to April of
Oh
2023,
no,
and
that's
and then
also huge.
also the promise that they're not going to let it get so far behind as well, that they're trying to get it more current, which is fantastic, so it can have more information as we're learning new things with this technology and how it can impact our work. So I think that's
Although,
fantastic.
although I would say that they mentioned that too, which is also a really big deal. And they mentioned they wanted to shorten the time that it was out of date, right? But
Right.
just consider the largeness of the task, right? Like the impossibility of the task. Because I think you and I have already mentioned it would take like 84 years each day to watch all of the YouTube videos that are uploaded, or something
Yeah,
like that, or something
that was the
completely
stat I
nuts.
saw a couple years ago about how much video got uploaded to YouTube. So
So it's
it's
probably even
crazy.
worse, right?
Oh,
Now,
for sure.
and so how can it actually keep up with everything, right? And so I'm actually, whoever's on that team, kudos to them and hats off for getting it up to April 2023, because that
Oh
is
my gosh.
nuts. Yeah.
It, it is crazy. But the turbo is supposed to be connected. When they get ChatGPT Turbo done, it should be connected fully. And that'll be very interesting in how it manages those bits of data.
Right. And I guess that was another point, is that the extended content length is probably GP4 Turbo as opposed to just GPT-4. So that's
Right.
something else. Um, Oh, okay. So, and we'll talk about this more, a use case that I did, frankly, on just GPT 3.5 with voice later, but they said that they're going to increase the natural sounding text to speech. And that to me is just truly mind blowing and incredible.
Yeah. So some of these new advancements that they've made to it, I mean, you now can just talk to it on your phone and other things, and then the responses that you're getting from it as well. It's been fascinating to see these new things. I'm really excited about the GPTs. That was one of the limitations that I found, the custom instructions that you can put into ChatGPT right now. It's just a singular one, and you'd have to erase it to put in something new, at least as I understood it. And so it was like kind of clunky, kind of
Right, right.
not really manageable well. So the GPTs kind of take care of that issue with a singular custom instruction.
Well, and so, what's also curious is there's a business component to this as well, because he said that creators who make GPTs and publish them would be able to share revenue, right? And so
Yeah.
there are store models that they can follow, because essentially you're coding an app with natural language, which I always thought when I started playing with, like if you've looked at our prompts already, that's very much what they feel like, is they feel like it feels like coding an application with natural languages, which is what it is. And that's what GPTs are going to be. But the App Store for Apple iPhone is huge, right? I mean, that's a
Right.
giant market, and it definitely helps them get lots of profit, be one of the biggest companies in the world. I have a feeling that that's going to be the same thing or very similar for OpenAI when it comes to ChatGPT and being able to sell and monetize custom GPTs. So,
Oh, I think that that definitely is one of the routes that they're going for. So it'll be really fascinating to see what creators come up with as they begin to dive into this for their own personal or work professional efforts. I've been working on some projects for a real estate executive, and it's been really entertaining to see what ChatGPT has come up with. And then he posed, so we've been writing this return to office article, and I've been using OpenAI to help facilitate some of that. And then he posed an interesting problem as we wrote this more toward the executives in real estate. And he's like, well, what about Gen Xers, Gen Zers? What are they seeing this? And so we looked at it and asked some questions and asked first some Gen Zers what they were thinking about it, and then took that information and fed it to ChatGPT and made a unique perspective on that return to office thing. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah, I mean, I think that what can be done with artificial intelligence still remains to be seen. The entire scope and breadth of all that it can do, and the different applications. Something that I have been experimenting with that I really enjoy, I think the opportunity for ChatGPT, particularly the voice option to help people that are blind or otherwise disabled, is a big deal. They mentioned that in the Dev Day video. There was a guy who mentioned he couldn't use half of his body, and that it was very difficult for him to use his arm. And so, being able to just talk to the computer and have it perform some of these tasks is an equalizer in a way. What's up?
Well, it brought to mind a scene from Star Trek, and I'm going to nerd out here for a second, where the Star Trek where they just talk to the computer, and the computer responds and gives them things. And what is it? I think it's Star Trek 3: Search for Spock, where Scotty and McCoy are running around San Francisco, and they're looking for materials for their ship to capture the whales. Blah blah blah. And Scotty sits down,
by the way, but so good.
Right. But he sits down at the computer and he's like, computer, and it doesn't respond. And then McCoy's like, the mouse, and so he picks up the mouse and he uses it as a voice device, and he's like, computer. And,
it still doesn't work.
And it still doesn't work. So we're looking at that, and it comes back to a lot of videos that you can see where they're like, Star Trek predicts the future of technology kind of things.
Yeah.
And
Really
so
does.
here we are with the computers being able to say computer, or, we're already doing that with Siri and Alexa and other things.
Right, we
So-
are. And frankly, the scene that comes to mind for me lately has been the Iron Man stuff. Jarvis, help me with this, do that.
Right,
That's the
right,
whole artificial general intelligence as well. It's, of
But-
course,
but you
that's copyrighted by Disney, right? So they're not going to name it Jarvis. They know what's good for them.
Right. But you bring up a really interesting point, that AI, Jarvis wasn't making these things. It took the inspiration and imagination of Tony Stark, the inventor, to engage that, because, Jarvis is like, oh, congratulations, you've created a new element, where Jarvis didn't see that from the things, and Tony Stark was pulling those bits out of the map his dad had created as a key or a cipher or whatever you want to call it, to that new element that he wasn't able to create then with his technology, but now Tony Stark could. And going back to the Dev Day, I mean, they showed those shots of people using AI in their work, and that one guy that was talking about the hemoglobin and how ChatGPT helped him. That was just
nuts.
amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
cool.
Yep.
So
No,
it's the applications are infinite for
the
this.
applications are infinite. So let's talk about one application that I did this week.
Okay.
Because last week we said we were going to talk about applications in the law. And so this week I decided that I would start testing some things out. And I'd had more, if not for a couple of things. So one, ChatGPT is currently not operating. Yikes. At least not for us, right?
Hey,
what an amazing
it's
tool
technology.
that doesn't currently work.
Yeah, servers go down or
Servers go
other
down.
things happen or internet got disconnected. Somebody took an axe
If
to
they
it.
had a robot maintaining it. No, I'm kidding. Um,
I don't know about that.
so yeah, but we do have some examples to show of some neat things that we've done with ChatGPT over the last week. So personally, over the last month, I've used ChatGPT to program an API, which I am not a programmer, which is amazing that I've been able to do that. I've been able to use ChatGPT to create a clean spreadsheet, to populate documents, to create documents for me, which has been amazing. And I've been testing different tasks that I would have paralegals to do. And again, I'm not thinking, and we've talked about this a lot, in terms of job replacement, but we're thinking about it in
Oh,
terms of job enhancement. Yeah, go ahead.
right. There was an interesting ad campaign that Fiverr just put out. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen it or no? It
No,
says
no.
AI took my job. So it's like the designer in the background. It says AI took my job, and then a small text below to the next level. And so fantastic.
that.
I mean, kudos to Fiverr for coming up with that. That was brilliant, brilliant.
AI took my job to the next level. Maybe it was written by AI.
But it could
may
very
well
well
have
have been. But it's fascinating, and this is what I tell people: AI is not going to take your job, but those who know how to use it will. And so,
Well,
if you're on this
yeah.
bandwagon right now, if you're jumping onto this accelerating train, you're going.
Accelerating trade. Yeah, it's true.
It is. It's an accelerating train. You're going to be so much better in your work, in the world, that you'll see results and opportunities open up to you.
So, and to that point, in particular, when it comes to legal things, and so I want to emphasize that, like in the terms of use for ChatGPT for OpenAI, one of their terms is, for legal use, this does not engage in the unauthorized practice of law. That you have to have a human who's knowledgeable and aware. And so, this use case that I'm about to propose is not something that I would say, oh yeah, I'm just going to leave a client with a phone and this is going to be totally fine. But I decided to play with some custom instructions, and I imagine that in the future I can set up a GPT specifically for this. And I actually reached out to OpenAI this week, but they have a backlog of people who are interested in their enterprise edition because I want to be able to manage accounts of my employees to use ChatGPT as well. So my point here, though, is one of the use cases is we have people come into the office and we do a detailed affidavit for their asylum claim or for other cases where they have to do maybe a hardship waiver, those kinds of things, because I do immigration law. And when you do asylum cases, you hear heart-wrenching tales of violence, sexual assault, unfortunately, just terrible, terrible things. And it needs to be handled with an appropriate level of poise and empathy. But you also need to drill down and get lots of information. And so I put together some custom instructions and I thought, can the voice chat version on my phone, can it do an asylum affidavit interview? Is that something that it can accomplish? And we're going to go through this chat and I'm going to show you what it did because it can accomplish those things. It was nuts. And so, what? Go ahead.
Zoom in just a little bit so that our viewers could see it. Because
Good call.
It's kind of small.
Well, actually, real quick, I want to show off the new interface. So you mentioned that you haven't been able to see it, but other people might be interested. You've got an Explore tab, and so you've got this opportunity to look at the GPTs that are available. These are things that have been designed by ChatGPT and an opportunity to make your own new ones. And then you can pin them in the corner.
Some abilities that my account does not have, so I
I thought I'd share that.
Well, Jacob here has been invited to a community. He was using ChatGPT so much and so often that he got invited to a community. So he's a little more privileged than I am right now.
I don't know why. I mean, maybe that's it. I got invited to a Slack channel a while back, and anyway,
it's all good.
So here is the interface and the chat that I'm talking about, where we did the voice chat. Now, I did this on my phone, and again, I think it was because Dev Day was coming up. There were some, intermittent kind of spots where I couldn't use GPT-4 and that kind of thing. So I lowered it to 3.5, and I decided to do a voice chat. The custom instructions I gave it were along the lines of, hey, I'm going to have a client come into the office. I'm going to introduce you to the client, tell you what language they speak, and I need you to do an affidavit for asylum, touch on these topics, these legal issues that need to be in an affidavit. And then when we're done, I'm going to say, okay, make the affidavit for me. I want you to put it in a numbered list. I gave it some markdown format instructions. And then this is what happened. So first I said, hey, I want to introduce you to Jorge Garcia. Here's his A number.
Zoom up a little bit.
Identification number for his case. And then I said, he speaks Spanish. We need to make an affidavit for his asylum case. So I give it the case type. And then it's all like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, Jorge. And it's in English. And I thought that it would pick up the whole Spanish bit at first because I said he speaks Spanish. I said, Jorge doesn't understand English. You need to ask him in Spanish. Mis disculpas, Jorge, which means I'm sorry, Jorge.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Just boom, drop of a hat. It took a beat. It like processed that information and then started speaking in Spanish. Like this is the voice version of ChatGPT as well. Pretty crazy, right?
It was speaking Spanish to you? That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was audible spoken Spanish. And it made a couple of errors here and there, like in its pronunciation, but like not every single question. Like,
yeah, what human is not going to do that too? I mean, my Spanish is good, but it's not native. Fantastic.
Here's the error it made. It didn't say comprendo, Jorge. I think it actually made the error. It was one error here. It said comprendo, George, and then it kept speaking in Spanish. That was the only error that I picked up while I was listening to it. Yeah. And so this chat outlines a story. If you can read Spanish, you know what it is. So you know what it's talking about, Warren. But
I can see it.
In asylum cases, you have to mention instances of violence that perhaps you've suffered. You have to tie that violence to a nexus, to a protected ground. So you have to mention suffering. You have to mention a protected ground, like we're being persecuted because we're Jewish or because of our religion or because of our nationality or our political opinion. And so then you have to draw a line between the two things. That's the nexus. And so it's asking questions about this, and I'm responding with an unfortunately common scenario of gang violence in Honduras. And so, but I want to go through some of these like answers from ChatGPT. So take a look at this one, Warren. What do you think of that?
That's very empathetic.
Right. I said, yeah. So in November 2017, some threats began. A kid came to our house with a he was armed, and he said, "You've got to pay us rent, or we're going to kill you." And then the first thing it says is, "I'm so sorry to hear that, Jorge."
Yeah.
I mean, which is more empathy than sometimes we express because we get used to it in our office. We're a little numb to it. Go ahead.
Oh, that's terrible that you're getting numb to it. But, you're seeing it day in, day out. But I do like the empathy at the very beginning that it's, I'm sad to hear that. And then it's like, I understand that situation is very difficult. It's giving that more human response, which is cool, I think.
Yeah, no, that impressed me a lot because one, it is important to remember in these scenarios, in an affidavit scenario, to like have sympathy for the people you talk to. Very important. So it continues to say, hey, this is a difficult situation. Now, I filled out I submitted some feedback on this because in my fake scenario, and again, this is unfortunately very common, is that people are threatened with sexual assault as well in their home countries, which is why they flee to the U.S. for asylum protection. And so it did redact it later, but the conversation continued, and it did mention, hey, I'm sorry that you've been dealing with sexual assault, and it kept going. So finally, it kept asking questions, like even after it got it asked me, how did you get to the U.S.? And then even after that, it says, were there any other incidents or motives related to why you left, right? Which is good for it to continue to follow up and dig in. But at this point, I was done with my test. I said, go ahead, make the affidavit. And here it is. it's just crazy that it would be able to take the information and be like, all right, here we go.
Yeah,
This is a
it's
task that
fantastic.
takes this is a task that takes hours. Like this is a task that I give to paralegals before we hire them. I'll sit with them, I'll talk to them in Spanish, and I'll say, "Hey, can you listen in Spanish and type in English and put together a narrative that makes sense?" Like this is a test that I give to a paralegal before I hire them to make sure that they can do the job. And ChatGPT was able to do it. Um,
So you no longer need paralegals, right?
no,
All right. So there we
obviously
go.
not, right? So that's the thing is that um, I, when somebody comes into the office, first of all, they need a human to manage their case. ChatGPT can't manage cases yet, right?
Right.
But my paralegals are going to be more effective as they begin to implement some of these technologies. So one of the other things that I've looked at doing with my paralegals is that frequently we have to translate documents from Spanish to English, and currently we've been uploading them to a service. Now, anybody who can translate the document that isn't related to the person themselves can translate that document and sign a
Yeah.
certificate of translation, right? Currently, we upload to a service and they take 24 hours or more if it's a lot of documents. And so we have to wait for that and we have to pay for that. And it's a big expense for us and for our clients, and it just takes time. Whereas if I can upload my documents to ChatGPT, and you can do this, you can say, hey, translate all of these documents and provide them for download in individualized Word document forms together with this certificate of service. Then I can download the Word document, check it, make sure that it's good, and then sign off on it. My
And see
paralegals can do that.
that really is the key, and that's what I tell a lot of people too. As they use and experiment with this, you're still the expert. ChatGPT is not the expert. They're pretty good at doing things and providing information, but it does need that review. It does need that sign off by an expert in the field.
Right. Right. And so this is going to help out, well, me personally, obviously, I've been using it a lot, but it's going to help out my staff because we're going to be able to translate documents. I could see, in theory, like ChatGPT helping my intake specialist guide that interview and guide that conversation. I could see it helping a paralegal during an interview with a client, and I could see it truly, consolidating all of that information into an affidavit that is quickly available, right? And and there are additional ways that you can add custom instructions, like check them for logical flaws or for conflicting dates, right? To make sure that we don't miss anything. um,
Right.
and so, or make sure, like, if the paralegal asks you to generate the affidavit, but you haven't covered X topic, say, we haven't covered this topic. And, like it could remind you, or like frequently we use a lot of checklists in the office to make sure we cover everything. So you could give it the checklist and say, hey, we need to make sure we cover everything in this checklist. So there are a lot
Yeah.
of ways that it could help a human being do the job better. And that's really what it's all about.
Fantastic. I love it. I love this application that you've come up with, and the results. They're very promising. So,
Yeah, so far, so this was 6 paragraphs, formatted on a Word document of probably 1 page. So most of our asylum affidavits end up somewhere between 2 pages would be short. They're probably
oh
going to
yeah.
be between
Okay.
3 and 7. People go through a lot, man.
Oh, no doubt.
They go through so much.
Having lived in Honduras, I'm aware.
Yeah. So 3 to 7 pages is pretty typical. And we're going to be able to do that with ChatGPT. I mean, we already do it, personally, but it's going to speed up our workflow significantly.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to experiment with this. And that's kind of one of the other things is I want to caution myself and think about this as I've been thinking about. I haven't yet approached my paralegals and said, hey, we're going to start trying this. But it would be trying it, right? Like if this is going to waste your time and your workflow, don't use it, right? But I have
Right.
a feeling that, in particular, the document translation, that's going to be faster than anything else we could do. That's going to help them
for sure.
just move the case along instead of waiting and logging in and out, and waiting on an email and downloading this and downloading that. To
Yeah.
just log in, say, here's the document. Thanks for the translation. Boom, we're done.
Yeah, I think a lot of that translation alone, that aspect alone, is going to be fantastic across so many different applications. globally. It's going to connect so many people. They can communicate easier when basically you have a babble fish from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it's like you just talk into it and then it translates it and then you're good to go. I know there are some technologies that are already in there, but now AI is going to be able to do that at an accelerated pace.
Well, and frankly, that is one of the things that I was going to say about this example, where it actually speaks to the client, is I could say, so for example, there was a lot of need and a lot of demand to provide asylum legal services, humanitarian aid to people from Afghanistan, more than there were translators and people capable of helping people in Pashto or the other languages and dialects that might be spoken. And so if I'd had this tool to help me do an affidavit for asylum for some people, if I'd had this a couple of years ago, it would have been so much more helpful to help those people specifically. And so particularly in places where you have a high humanitarian demand, I was thinking this through. I was like, oh, this is going to be so amazing to like help people in need, because you could literally have an attorney if you needed to, like if there's another humanitarian crisis. Let me revise that. When there's another humanitarian crisis, we could bring a bunch of people into our office that we don't know how to communicate with, set them up on a chat like this that we've tested and we know is working well. And even if only 4 out of 5 of those work appropriately, well, we've been able to help out, more people than we would have otherwise. And then we can go back and fine tune and tailor that 5th person and make sure that we get them the help they need, but we could do it all simultaneously. Be amazing.
Right. It would be amazing. That is a fantastic use case right there.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for this technology. I think that we're going to, again, the ability to help people on a large scale, I think is really one direction to take this. It's going to make a lot of people a lot of money, but in the context of this humanitarian need, it's also going to help a lot of people in unforeseeable ways. So, yeah.
For sure. Well, fantastic. This is exciting. I love the application that you brought this into, and we'll talk probably next week about some maybe marketing expansion or some branding expansion. But thanks for sharing this. It's been amazing as we talked about this affidavit construction project that you've got going on. So,
so the topics we have, I still have some more legal stuff to show you, but I know that we did want to talk about marketing. So that's next week. And then, of course, as GPTs roll out and new things roll out on our website at Tingenuity.ai, for those of you interested in following along, come see us. We're going to get our basics course up soon. And you can see more videos of me and Warren talking about introducing you to the topic of AI. So,
Yep. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jake.
Cool.
It's been fantastic.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.